So, I think we all would agree that participation is the currency of the modern campaign. So, whether we want people to elf themselves, to make their own IKEA bedroom, to share their sandwich confessions, I'm sure about that, or to curate and sell their own album, we all want consumers to participate with our work. Now, we may well debate the commercial merits of a purely participative approach. So, this is a wonderful post I urge you all to read by Martin Weigel about the participation paradox, where he makes a great point. We are obsessed with fans at the moment, but most people don't buy our brand very often, most people aren't loyal to our brand, and most people don't know our brand very well. It's a phenomenon called negative binomial distribution, and basically it's reflected in most categories. Over time, most buyers are light buyers, and they're very important to sales performance. Also, some of our efforts are confusing the hell out of our consumers. So I love this letter. I suspect it's written by a creative because it's beautifully crafted, but it pretends to be from a consumer called Brian, who thinks there has been some terrible misunderstanding. Well, you've got the idea that I'd really like the prospect of coming home from work and spending my valuable time taking part in your stupid idea about sausages instead of looking at pornography. It's an excellent point. But the fact remains that for more and more of our audience, participation is a way of life. So some recent research from the BBC highlighted the fact that the 1-9-90 rule is outmoded. So that's been a classic trope about participation and quality over the years. It is no more. 77% of people that they surveyed are participating in some way, a lot of it in a very easy, light way, and that's what social media and Facebook have enabled, that light, easy participation. What's more, most of the content our consumers are seeing is filtered by their friends' participation. So they're watching video recommended by friends, they're reading news stories recommended by friends. So if we want our content to be seen at all through what Eli Paris calls the filter bubble, we need some measure of participation. That's all very important, but what's most important for me is that participation disrupts business models. Participation disrupts supply. So think about Airbnb. Suddenly there are infinitely more rooms available to rent. What does that do to the hotel industry? Think about Uniqlo's lucky tweet. What does that do to pricing models if price drops in exchange for participation? Bloody hell. Think about ASOS Marketplace. What happens when you completely disrupt distribution? What happens with things like shop interest, where any Pinterest store becomes a shop? With products like kiosk, where any image on the web becomes a shop, distribution is fundamentally disrupted. So how do we get better at briefing for participation, bearing in mind that Brian does not want to participate with our stupid idea about sausages? Well, I think three key things I'm going to talk about. The first is that a business problem, as Richard talked about, is a behavioural change in disguise. The second is that we want to start thinking about network insights, not just about consumer insights. And the third is that I think we need to start moving from the single thing we want to say to the single thing we're going to make or do. So a business problem is behavioural change in disguise. It was ever thus. I've always asked planners to move from a business problem to a behavioural change. So don't say we need to increase sales by 5%. Tell me we need 600,000 people to buy one more pack of this product a year. I can do something with that level of granularity. What's interesting today is that more and more business problems can be affected by behavioural change. So it used to be that we had a number of forces acting on consumer behaviour, be they product, price, distribution, and we had very little control over those forces. The thing we had real control over was promotion. Now, by changing consumer behaviour and enabling that with technology, making those two forces work together, as Richard said, they don't work in isolation, we can impact all those forces. So consumer behaviour can impact product, it can impact price, it can impact distribution. So change behaviour and I guess you change the world, and that transforms the role for agencies as well. So how do we do that? Start with a very clear, simple, granular problem. As I've said, we need 1 million people to buy one more pack of butter a year. Rate of sale is sky high, but distribution is a barrier to growth. Delivery costs are stripping the margin from our business. Those are all very granular, simple business problems. Then think about what is the behavioural change you need to happen to make those business check problems go away. So We might need to create one additional baking occasion a year. We might need our fans to become our distribution channel. We might need to incentivise users to pool their delivery slots. So basically, let's move from nice sharing to what Clay Shirky calls jackhammer sharing. Jackhammer sharing is sharing and participation that breaks things. So from what would we like people to do to what do we need people to do. We might like it if they tell stories and upload videos, and we need them to share their expertise, share their product, make their Facebook page a store, recommend product. Second point, network insights, not consumer insights. People do not exist in isolation. They never have. They certainly don't today. So rather than thinking about individual pen portraits, like Richard, pen portraits make me itch, think about the network. So these consumers exist in a network. How big is it? Is it a symmetrical network like Facebook? Is it an asymmetrical network like Twitter? What's the currency that drives that network? So what are these people sharing? Where are they sharing it? And most importantly, perhaps, why are they sharing it? So thinking about your target audience, what is their motivation to share? What is their motivation to participate? It might be about utility, it might be about connecting with others, it might be about status and kudos, and there are lots of different user experience tactics and techniques we can build in to facilitate those kind of motivations. Thinking about network insights also ensures we know how to properly balance effort and reward. So very simply put, if we're going to expect people to do a lot of work, to go home, not watch porn and make a stupid video about sausages, we need to give them a pretty strong reward. So that might be an intrinsic reward, like with something like the Johnny Cash project, where I feel great about being part of a wonderful art project. It might be a material reward where I earn money for participating. It might be where you make me famous for participating, but there needs to be a level of reward. So that is all about network insights, the importance of network insights. The last point I wanted to make was the single thing we're going to make or do. So the traditional high point of the creator brief, the bit the creators skipped to, the bit we agonised over, was the proposition. What is the single thing we want to say? But we've established that participation disrupts business models. We've established that consumers' ability to participate has the power to impact our clients' businesses in more profound ways than ever before. And we've established that the solution to a much more diverse range of business problems, from distribution to innovation funnels to pricing to supply, lies in changes to consumer behaviour. And if we want to change consumer behaviour, we're probably not going to be talking at people. So, to put it another way, as Clay Shirky said, South by Southwest a few years ago, behaviour is motivation filtered by opportunity. So we've talked about behaviour, we've talked about drilling into a business problem, turning that into behavioural change and asking, what do we need people to do? Not what do we like them to do, what do we need them to do? We've talked about motivation, we've talked about looking at their networks and understanding why will they do it? What about their network, what about the way they communicate, the way they gain social currency will persuade them to do it? What we now need to think about is what is the opportunity we're providing? So if we know what we want, we know why, how are we enabling the behavioural change we want to see? So rather than asking, what are we going to say, I'd like us to start asking, what are we going to make or do that will enable the behavioural change we want to see? What platforms are we going to provide? What opportunities are we going to make for our consumers to create? What opportunities are we going to make for our consumers to sell and distribute? So in summary, remember, any business problem today is a behavioural change in disguise. That used to be a small proportion of business problems. We used to be hampered by the fact that we could create wondrous surges in demand, but we couldn't do anything about supply. Now we can. So remember that and think about what we need people to do. What's the disruptive jackhammer piece of sharing and participation that we need to see happen? Think about network insights, not just about consumer insights. So okay, we need people to do this. Why will they do it? What are their network motivations? What are their social motivations to do this? And lastly, let's stop thinking about the single thing we want to say and start thinking about the single thing we're going to make or do. What are we going to make or do that will enable people to do this behavioural change we need to happen? So 3 questions on the modern brief from my point of view makes it for a very stripped down, simple brief, and I'm sure there's a ton of things that people point out I've forgotten and are vital, but I think if we answer these 3 questions, we'd be doing pretty well. What do we need people to do? Why would they do it? What are we going to make or do that will enable them? Thank you very much.